Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Dare I utter it? Victory Monday. Two of them now for Nebraska in the 2020 season. More in store, ... question mark. We'll see as the Gophers are set to get here. So far, that's still on, and we haven't heard anything to say otherwise, other than Fleck and crew decimated. Doesn't matter, man. A lot to get to with Minnesota this week. A lot to review from a good moment for Nebraska in West Lafayette. And you know what? You go to West Lafayette, and it's just one of those spots that eerie things happen. And eerie things have happened to Nebraska players. Of course, you had the Miles Farmer injury. You had the DeMornay Pearson-L injury. There's other injuries that I'm blanking on right now, but it's just, you've had really horrific losses there, right, to some not very good teams pre-Brom. I think we can all say, okay, Brom may be 4-8 or around that number, or he'll be around 6-6. They may crawl to a 7-win season with him, but his last couple years have not been what his first 2 years were. But man, it always makes you nervous against Purdue because he's that good an offensive mind. He has David Bell. He has Rondale Moore. And they can put up points, and they find a way to beat a couple of opponents every year that you're like, how did that happen? And you go back to week one, their comeback against Iowa. They started off leading the Big Ten. They were right there against Northwestern. And as a Nebraska fan, you saw the line on this thing, and it was kind of a coin flip game. And it could not have started any better for Nebraska, the way they jumped out 17 rip. And you get the special teams play with Falk in the block punt. You get Mills in the end zone. And you got an old form and gritty Adrian Martinez. You got a Blackshirt defense that said you're not running the football today. And you got a Nebraska group of 11 on the defensive side of the ball that did an amazing job tackling. Brandon Vogel put out some made tackle, missed tackle rates, and you're hovering around upper 70s, near 80% when it came to made tackles. And you got to have that against Rondale Moore. There's a couple of times where on third downs they hit Moore, Purdue did, and he just made a quick turn, and there's 5 more yards after the catch. And it was never easy, though, for Nebraska, and that's just kind of the 2020 theme, never easy. And there are games like that that help build you up in a season, and it's impressive to me for Nebraska not only to go get the win by 10, but it got pucker factor time in that fourth quarter after Bell got the 89-yard touchdown reception where Britt, again, played the ball and the man beautifully. He got picked off by his own guy, and bang, this thing that felt pretty comfortable turned into a 7-point game. Now, the drive from hell, and both teams would nod their head and say yes. Nebraska was able to respond, get a break on a really stupid personal foul penalty on Purdue. You had a couple of screwball holding calls, a brutal call on Austin Allen with a gorgeous block that I may have swore in front of my mother and grandmother. But the point is this: Nebraska gets a win. Nebraska gets a second victory, and that momentum we talk about is building. You saw a great effort against Iowa. And really, and we'll hear from Coach Frost, we'll hear from DiCaprio Buddha, we'll hear from Brendan Hymas, we'll hear from Dedrick Mills. You get the sense and the feel. I mean, they all those guys kind of have this stare and glare in their eyes heading into Minnesota. Part of that is remembering last year how you were thoroughly, you were publicly flogged. you were just destroyed by Minnesota. And they ran all over you, didn't have to throw the football. They tested your manhood, and some of the guys on the team last year weren't real interested in playing in 29-degree weather with a little bit of sleet. You got stomped. You got crushed, 34-7. Guys didn't make plays. That is stuck with this team. And Dedrick Mills said it best that this team is hungry. They have a real chance to take care of business Saturday, see who they get, if it is a Michigan or a Rutgers. I mean, Michigan's loaded with talent, but they're really in no position to really give a damn right now. Who knows where Harbaugh is going to be? So Nebraska has a chance to make you feel better about their direction. It just was really a tough start, and you're always going to have that Illinois moment on the schedule. But big picture, if they take that awful medicine the right way, a letdown game that turns into a loss may not happen. Nebraska's still a long ways away from championship aspirations, but you got to keep climbing the ladder. And that's what Saturday was. Nebraska wasn't down, wasn't deflated post-Iowa. They were more ticked off, right? We heard that last week. Well, Nebraska is an angry program. Well, there's a lot of things to be angry about, but they channeled that appropriately, and they were locked in. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't always pretty, but I thought Nebraska made some strides. That looked, granted, and you're not able to wide out that drive where Nebraska's moving the ball deep in their own territory, and then there's a string of penalties that takes you from the 50 back to your own 30, and then you get the hookup from Purdue. Eventually, you get the field goal to make it 10 points, and then you can breathe a little easier. You can join us today, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. There's still some negativity about how aesthetic Nebraska looks, all right, through 4 quarters of football. There's also a portion of the fan base that really doesn't care. Just get me the win and move on. And that's kind of how I'm taken away. It is frustrating, I'm sure, for Nebraska fans that it can't ever be easy, but that's just where this program is. And I think, Elijah, it'll help them continue to mature and not only appreciate the wins, but be locked in week to week, not just for certain benchmark games. And that's part of learning as a program as well, that you got to treat them all the same, and it's as boring as all get out to talk about that, but it's not wrong. And Nebraska able to put a full effort together. You got really good defense. You had a punt blocked, and that was on the punter. But overall, your special teams did enough. They were good in the field goal game. Kickoff return still can wear you out a little bit, but you got the blocked punt. You started fast because of special teams. And then offensively, Mills helped the run game, but Adrian looked really good.
Yeah, I was going to go talk about Mills because I think the run game on offense, I don't want to say transformed, but it looks very different with Mills in there.
It's more comfortable.
More comfortable. He knows how to follow the blocks, the offensive lineman. I don't think it's a coincidence that I felt like the offensive line was playing better in a game where Dedrick Mills was running behind them. I think Dedrick Mills brings out some strengths of that offensive line. I think it's also a big positive that the Huskers were able to play a Big Ten opponent and win both sides, the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. The offensive line beat Purdue's defensive line, and Nebraska's defensive line, dare I say, dominated Purdue's offensive line.
They did. That defense, the numbers, and I'm sure Coach McBride's smiling. We'll talk to him in less than an hour. You had 9 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. You didn't have to bring a 4th or 5th pressure all the time when you had Nelson and Stilley and Casey Rogers harassing the Purdue quarterback. And you got a guy in Ty Robinson that's really talented as well. That defensive line, I mean, Stilley's playing great football right now, but the guy that I think maybe has put his best 2 games together, and you think ceiling and upside, when Darian's with the Niners. When Damian Daniels is in, he had a lot of confidence after his Iowa effort, and he didn't have a good day against Illinois. They turned and moved him. They focused on him. Overall, Daniels, though, Snacks has been really good this year. He's been able to play more snaps, but what he was able to do with a tackle for loss. He's had one of those a game, it feels like, and it really sets the tone. And while it's not always happening, you're getting one a game, and the offense is rethinking about running inside, okay? And the one thing Nebraska's really done well this year, in my opinion, is they have been fantastic and selfless with that outside edge, whether it's Nelson, whether it's Tanner, whether it's JoJo, whether it's Decap, whether it's Cam Taylor Britt, and then you have your safety help with Williams and Dismuke coming up. Nebraska does a hell of a job setting the edge. People don't get outside very often, and if someone does get outside, it's not a monster gain, and there's 3 or 4 red or white shirts around the football. I think Nebraska's been very, very physical on the edge. Purdue tried to run some bubble work, right? It would make sense with a guy like Bell or Rondale Moore, and those guys got shoved back in. I mean, watching David Bell try and block on the edge was laughable. And you used to see that movie at Nebraska post Stanley Morgan, right? How many times last year did you scream expletives at your TV with Nebraska running some sort of bubble and no one making a block on the edge, and it's a -3 on a 1st and 10? Purdue got rocked. They were not physical. They were not up to the task of being physical. As a longtime Nebraska fan, you're probably nodding your head and saying, well, it's Nebraska. Purdue shouldn't even be in Nebraska's neighborhood of physicality. Well, that's not been the case. That wasn't the case last year against Minnesota. Nebraska's not matched physicality with other teams in the Big Ten as consistently as they're supposed to, right, based on the history of reputation. But Nebraska this year, man, they are very, very stalwart when it comes to being physical, being good on the lines of scrimmage, specifically defensively. That front seven, that was a monster question mark. They have done the job, and I'm appreciative, if I'm a Nebraska fan, at how locked in they were, how well they tackle, and also the linebacker play you're getting. So Adrian was big. Wandale was fantastic. Mills was key from that attitude, that bravado of being physical and being quick and getting downhill. And I thought some of Nebraska's play calling, guess what? When things are executed, you don't have to tar and feather your play caller or your offensive coordinator or your head coach, because Nebraska was able to see some things, and for the most part, it got executed. The one play on 4th down that got volleyballed down, awesome play call. Great play by the Purdue defensive end, but you had the run-pass option to the tight end out there in the flat that could have sealed things with a touchdown versus a field goal. But you know what? Nebraska found their groove. They found their confidence. This team's been resilient. I think this 2020 group of seniors, which we'll get into, has been very resilient. But it was a really good win for them, and they had to hang on against Penn State, and that was big. But they didn't treat it the right way going into Illinois. I'm not worried about Nebraska treating it or focusing or drilling down and respecting Minnesota. I say that now, but I do feel pretty good about Nebraska's mental approach to this week. They're hungry. They feel good about a win. They want more of them. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Great start for Nebraska. Big-time response by Adrian Martinez. Played another solid game. And listen, and he doesn't have to go Patrick Mahomes for me. If I'm watching this Nebraska offense, make the right play, make the right throw. Don't turn it over. Don't try and do too much. Manage. That's fine with me. And you got Wandale loose for his second 100-yard game. And just from an offensive standpoint, I liked seeing Nebraska with what they were able to do over the middle. And that's get Wandale on some crossing routes. That's more involvement from Betts in the offense. That was good. And to me, it was the defense. They gave up a few yards, but really Nebraska was dominant at times. Let's go to the phone lines. Pete's with us to get us kicked off. Pete, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
How you doing today?
Good. What do you know?
Well, I thought the defensive coaches did a better job. They allowed the defensive backs to come up and do some bump and run with talented receivers, which kind of opened up the safety to play a little bit more freer. I really think maybe everybody kind of gave up a little bit too early on Cam Jurgens. I didn't see any bad snaps. I thought the coaching in this game was better. I liked some of the decisions, the play calling, and I thought the defensive side of the ball, the coaches did a better job in this game also.
Well, when you're getting after the quarterback, Pete, 9 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and that happened early, that really kind of set the tone for you. And I think Taylor Britt has shown the ability to be really, really good. Well, he rose to the challenge. I think he had confidence when he did really well against Dodson, Penn State stud that lit up Ohio State. Listen, Cam Taylor Britt's playing with a lot of confidence right now, and for him to make those plays is incredible. Boodle had another nice game. Now, Nebraska's secondary was big, but they got help from the defensive line. Pete, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate it. Yeah. It was a nice effort.
I can't believe we made it through almost that entire first segment without talking about Cam Taylor Britt, because his development this season, where he started the year, he was good, but right now he looks like the best player on that defense.
We were going to get there. I promise. There's just a lot of positives to talk about on a Victory Monday. Cam Taylor Britt is playing high-level football. Got to keep after it. Jay Moore, his thoughts next on Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Who's Dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time. Victory Monday. It's Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Let's bring in Blackshirt Husker NFLer, part of Big Red Wrap-Up and his podcast, More to It. Jay Moore is with us. Jay Bird, how's your Monday going, man?
It is good. I can't complain. The weather's great. Played a few golf holes today, taking advantage of the weather. So, all in all, I'll take it.
You'll take it. Nebraska fans will take Saturday. And it's never easy. It looked good. It felt good. And then, oh, damn, it's a 7-point game with about 11 minutes left. Were you teetering, or were you confident that this would be okay? This movie would have a different ending for Nebraska?
I obviously it got started off very, very well. And then, Nebraska gets the 4th down stop late in the second half, and then they get the ball back, and they get the block punt, and, and then they get 3 points. They go, oh, man, you watch. That 3 points is going to come back to burn us. Just watch. And then we come out, we get going again, and then, it seemed like Purdue never was really there. They were hanging in there, and we were just kind of hanging back and, avoiding some blows, and they get that big one to Bell. And I'm like, uh-oh. That's when I go, uh-oh, here we just got to make it difficult, don't we? We just got to make it tough, but defense steps up big. Cam Taylor Britt makes some big big PBUs, and offense gets some first downs there and gets some a late field goal to help seal the deal. And winning isn't easy, and it hasn't obviously been easy for us last few years. So a win's a win. There's some things that obviously you can always do better, but I'm happy with it. This has been a strange year. Purdue's dealing with their own things, but they had a healthy Rondell Moore, you had a healthy David Bell, and you other than that big play that David Bell got, you shut him down pretty much, and I'm happy with it. It's a win, and I'm just trying to, hopefully everything goes well. Fingers crossed that we're able to play Minnesota on Saturday, and you hopefully can finish 3-4, then you get that crossover game, and you can finish 4-4. Then we'll see what happens with the bowl season, and then. I'm just trying to get momentum going. I'm looking at momentum and finishing this thing strong after a very awkward and disappointing start to 2020.
Jay Moore with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, I think the defense played great on Saturday, but I want to talk a little about the offense because I'd consider that their best offensive output of the season. I know Penn State game's also up there, but this game just felt a little bit different, and I think part of that is Adrian Martinez and his ability to turn around this season after the slow start. He's come on so strong in the last 2 games. What do you make of how he has been able to turn this season around?
Yeah, he's been good. I mean, I don't know if he's ever been bad. I think we overreacted to the performance against Northwestern. I mean, you got to give credit to Northwestern now because they're a really good defense, and they're gonna play for the Big Ten title here in a few weeks. So we react to that, and inability to score the red zone against Northwestern. I think, you look at the Purdue game, and obviously Luke comes out and plays well in that one. But, I don't know if Adrian has really, struggled by any means. We just tried to do something else. We just tried to give Luke a shot to give this offense a jolt, and he gave him a jolt for a game. But I've always said, Adrian's been the guy to make this thing go, and I've been, happy with what he's been able to do. It's just, at times, he hasn't got the help up front with whether it's a snapping issue or O-line blocking issue. So, but, in today's day and age where kids are ultra sensitive and, if you're not, starting me or whatever, it's we deal with kids nowadays that, hey, I'm going to take my ball and I'm going to go home, which means I'm going to go and transfer if I'm not getting my opportunity. And Adrian didn't do that. And he easily could have said, screw you guys, I'm
going home.
Yeah, I don't need. Yeah, exactly. I don't need this. I can go and this year doesn't really count anyways. I can go ahead and transfer to somewhere else and have a couple other years to play. And he didn't do that. And he was really a play away from coming back and bouncing back and being the man. And he played a damn good football game. I mean, that run he got in the first quarter, that off of a broken protection, it looked like he was about to get sacked, and then breaks a couple tackles and scores. I mean, that's big time football, and he makes some big time throws, and he finally got clean snaps for one game, and look what happens. He had some decent protection. Boom. He can be a pretty good quarterback when you get some decent protection and clean snaps. It's just funny how that happens. So hats off to him. It's a lot of kids nowadays would have taken their ball and gone home or cried to mom and dad, but he didn't. He stuck he stayed with it, and I think I'm glad he's on our side. That's for sure.
Jay Moore's with us, Blackshirt Husker NFLer. Big Red Wrap-Up, more to it, his podcast at JMoore44 on Twitter. Jay, a thought, let's go back to the defensive side of the ball and your assessment of the front seven. I know what the stats say, but Nebraska really was very physical, and I don't know that Purdue wanted a whole lot of Nebraska, but speak specifically to the defensive line and what they did Saturday.
They played well. Listen, Purdue doesn't run the ball well, but you still hold them negative 2 yards rushing. But the biggest thing for me was getting the front, 3 or 4, but times they were able to get home with just 3 guys. I thought Ben Stilley played one of his best games. I thought Garrett Nelson finally showed up. He probably had arguably one of his better games rushing the passer since he's has been his second year. So that's the biggest thing, because when you have two dudes, and Rondell Moore and Bell, you got to get some focus on them, and you need some guys in the back end. So you need some linebackers to jam some guys up and get them off the route, get them off the timing. So you have to rely on some guys up front to rush, and they were getting home with 3 and 4 at times, which is awesome, which is what you want. So hats off to those guys. They got pressure, they hung in there, and they didn't have any silly penalties or anything like that. So the front 3 guys or 4 guys, however you want to call them, I thought they played really, really well. It was just a matter of time. They've done a lot of good things this year, and then when you needed a stop or a play, they came up big to make some stops. So happy for them, and happy for with Coach Tuioti and Coach Dawson and those guys. They put in the work, and happy to see the fruits of their labor finally kind of come to the table.
Jay Moore's with us. Jay, about 4 minutes or so left in this segment. I want to get your take on Nebraska's 2020 seniors, and they could be super seniors, which means they're back for another year. But overall, what type of example have they set moving forward for this program? I know that was a topic of conversation today at the presser.
Well, you're brought in by another staff, and you get coaching changes, and that's hard. I was a part of a coaching change, and it's tough. You commit to a staff and a program, and you're told it's going to be one way, and then things happen and things get changed, and it is what it is. It's just college football. It's a big business, And it hasn't been easy for them. It hasn't. And the guys that have stuck here and stayed and put it out there. It's in today's, like I said with Adrian, in today's day and age, it's just you just see kids when the going gets tough. You kind of say, I'm gonna go try something else, or I'll transfer somewhere else, or who knows? It just seems like they always find an excuse to do something else. And they stuck with it. The Hymases, Cam Taylor Britt, Dante Williams. There's some really good guys who played some Ben Stilleys. A lot of those guys have played great football, and they've endured some stuff. And if they want to come back, they sure can. But if they want to obviously pursue the NFL or whatever, or business stuff afterwards, but they've been through the grind. They've been through the meat grinder here the last for their career, and it's been tough. But they've stuck with it, and hopefully this season can end out strong for them. And if they want to come back and give it another whirl in 2021, they sure can. But I hope this year ends out really positive for them, because this has obviously been a crazy year. But happy for them, and that they've stuck it out, and they're able to play football this year.
Jay Moore with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Jay, about 2 minutes left. And I just want to ask about the slow starts to the seasons that the Huskers have had. This feels like the third straight year under Frost where Nebraska has started the year slow and gotten things kicking a little bit later in the year. Is that more a result of just how young Scott Frost's teams have been and the project he's had to build during his time here? Or is it more indicative of just how his teams are going to play and maybe just how long install takes on his offense and things like that? What do you think is more the culprit for these slow starts to the season?
Yeah, I think being young has definitely something to do with it. They're still a very young football team, and they obviously need to get older, and Scott's alluded to that. But I think it's just being young, and it's just had some crazy issues. You start off, in his first year here, you get a game canceled, or in his first game at home, and then the next last year you have Adrian has some injury issues, and you have you're playing a young center and you have the snapping issues. It's just a little bit of everything, and then obviously this year is just, you could think about 15 different things I think in 2020, and you could blame it on and for slow starts. But I do think you made a good point that with being young, that's hard. That's really, really hard. And you're just going to expose everything, and you're learning the process, you're learning the steps, you're learning playing on the road, playing at home, playing with fans, playing with no fans, there's just a lot of things you're dealing with now, and being young, it's hard, but they're working their way through it. And hopefully this is maybe the last year you're going to start seeing some of these slow starts and things to kind of get cooking and rolling. But everyone's hanging in here right now, and I'm just I'm hoping they have realistically 3 football games ahead of them to finish out and gain some more confidence and get those young guys some more reps and get them some more confidence and finish the thing out strong.
Let's go to a bowl game. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be sweet, wouldn't it?
It'd be a road trip, man. Go to some place that's sunny and sandy, and we'll leave it
maybe
there.
Maybe in the state of Florida.
Yeah, Florida or Texas.
That'd be great.
That'd be all right.
Be great.
I'll pay for the gas, Bird.
I'm flying. I don't know about you.
Jay's like, yeah, maybe. Bird, I can't wait to hear the podcast. More to it. It's posted on the Hurrdat Media Network, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Jay, we'll see you on Friday at Piedmontese, bud.
You got it. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
There he is. Jay Moore with us on Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Open phones here till 5. Charlie McBride coming up. We'll hear from Greg Smith on a gain and a loss on Nebraska's 2020 recruiting class. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. Big thanks to Jay Moore. His take on Purdue's game in Nebraska's win Saturday. 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can email Chris at HailVarsity.com. Follow us, find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbal. So some good stuff today from Coach Frost, DiCaprio Boodle, Diedrich Mills, Brandon Hymas. I mean, it was senior day, and we will get into probably later on in the week who's likely to come back, who you want to come back, and who won't be coming back. And I don't know if Hymas is a guy you'll have back. I think you could really get a bump if you're Nebraska with we'll see where Colin Miller's at with his health. But if I'm Nebraska, I'd love Honus back. And I think with DCAP, give the dude a 6th year. The way him and Cam are playing at the corner, and even Nebraska's safeties, to be honest with you, I don't think the safeties will come back. But they're playing really good football, and they've played really well getting downhill and helping in the run game this year. So when it comes to Scott Frost and, why is his team playing like they are and their energy level, why were they so locked in on Saturday and moving forward? Where's the mindset of this football team?
I think we have more guys on the team now that love football. That certainly helps. I think we got guys that care about each other more. They still feel like they're having fun playing and have something to prove.
So that helps. And Elijah, with this team, they've been through so many ups and downs, and it's been an issue. You look at 2018, you start out 0-6. You get the expectations and the number by your name in 2019, and you finish 5-7. On top of some of these guys like a JoJo and a DCAP and a Hymas, really 3 guys from that 17 class, that they've been through the ups and downs with the coaching transition that's more and more normal in college football, but it's still never easy to go through. But they have been pretty resilient. On one hand, you're like, okay, you guys haven't won a lot. Can you handle success? No is the answer after Penn State going in to the Illinois game. But the way that they've at least talked on a Monday, again, talk is cheap, right? The way that they feel and look focused, they still got to go do it. But I think they've learned their lesson. That's one of those evils where how does a senior class let that happen, right? How do you just absolutely bleep the bed against Illinois after beating Penn State? But I guess what showed me some character with this team, not only that there's still a number of seniors on the team, but the fact that the way they came out against Iowa. And then after another, let's get kicked in the junk ball game against Iowa, the way they prepared and came back for Purdue. So they're going about it the right way. They finally got the payoff in the result on Saturday. And I think they'll also remember 3 weeks ago with how they didn't do things Monday through Friday, and it bit them on Saturday. I think this football team's had to learn some tough, hard lessons. But that's just how this team is, and I think you're going to see them really in a pretty good gas tank level when they hit this finish line. I think there's plenty in the tank for this team in 2020.
I mean, just aside from the different types of players into the program compared to the Mike Riley years, I think the biggest difference is what Scott said in that comment was they're recruiting guys who love the game of football. There was a Hail Varsity magazine issue, I think it was the recruiting issue back in February, and the title was Finding Guys Who Love Football. That's the MO for Scott Frost, and I think that's the key, because whenever you have a team that's going to lose over half their games for 3 consecutive years, the guys who love football, it's going to make them better. It's going to build character. The guys who don't love football, it might turn them into losers.
Right. I mean, what's your motivation? What's your attitude? How are you handling yourself? Are you getting better? Are you pouting? I mean, different types of reactions to adversity, right? Let's go to cut 6 here from Frost on that topic of responding after a win.
You got to learn from a win and learn from a loss. I've really seen our habits and a lot of things around the building get better the last couple weeks. Coming off a win, you got to double down on that, do even more of it. Make sure you're focused. Focus is good. Your practice habits are good. Your effort's good. And I expect the guys to respond well this week.
when it comes to that response, part of that response has been led by these seniors in 2020. And this is more from Scott Frost here on describing this senior class.
They're tough and they're resilient. I'd probably pick those two. They've been through a whole heck of a lot, and really starting to see growth on our football team. I've been seeing it for a while. It's starting to show up on the field, and those guys spearhead that. So it's a tough group.
It is. Your quarterback's extremely mentally tough, and Adrian Martinez, he was ready to go, looked good. He's looked great the last 2 weeks after either getting benched and having to split time or really have his role limited. He's come back to reclaim. He's looked very sharp on just some simple make-the-play throws, right? I mean, Nebraska's offense, when you're getting edge blocking and you look at the touchdown inside the red zone, they called that play last year, and it blew up on them, and this state screamed about it because you didn't have any edge blocking. Well, you had numbers. It was the old Oklahoma drill. And you had Lever walk into the end zone with that little bubble pass, and it was great. You had two dudes on the edge blocking, and you had an untouched wideout in a stack formation stroll into the end zone. You can run staples of this offense if you get the execution. And Nebraska has been able to do that here as the season's gone on.
Just quickly on that play, it helps that Purdue only had two guys.
No, I know they had the numbers. they were late in getting over there. Mm-hmm. But the point of it is you had Falk and another dude out there leading the way.
I believe it was Vokalek. I remember watching that play live and saying they got two cover and three. It's the only time I've ever watched this offense and prayed for a bubble or a screen pass of some sort.
Throw it to the right. Like I said, it's an Oklahoma drill. Yep. Your job is to get off of 2 blocks and go tackle the ball player. More thoughts here from Scott Frost on Adrian. And Adrian has been fantastic. This is how you hope a kid would respond, but it's certainly not the norm how kids respond.
The rebound is impressive. Really, Sam, I saw that improvement from both quarterbacks. When I told them it was a competition going into Iowa game, both of them had exceptional weeks of practice that week. We played both of them. Our plan was to play both, and the same this week. I think they've just been practicing better. We've been completing more balls, getting them off on time, making better decisions, and that's translated to the field. I don't know if what happened was a motivation. I know in my college career, had a couple negative things happen, and I used that as a motivation, had a chip on my shoulder. So I don't really know if that's it or if some success has led to more confidence. But either way, both guys are practicing better and playing better on the field.
Listen, you almost beat Iowa. You do take down Purdue. Dare I say this team's getting better? They've looked better the last 2 weeks, and 3 out of the 4 weeks they've looked pretty good. We'll wind down Hour 1 at Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, it's Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. So my mind is already thinking towards grilling tonight. It's mid-50s right now. I don't know that I'll have a lot of sunshine or any to deal with, but it'll be warm outside. So do I grill or do I go elsewhere with that? I don't know. I'm already thinking food here, and it's not even 5. I know what I've got to drink, all right, but the food part of things.
Well, are you going to be watching Monday Night Football tonight?
Well, there's two. There's 2 games tonight.
I think the Steelers are already playing right now.
Have they kicked off?
I believe
Are you going to bring up the steak and a beer bet with your donks?
I was hoping we were going to get into that here.
Right. And we'll do it now versus later. Denver played a good ball game last night. They had really good red zone defense. I'm, as a fantasy owner that has a 3-point lead, I really needed Tyreek Hill's touchdown to stand.
That was unfortunate.
That was horrific.
Yeah, that was one that, as a Broncos fan, I just laughed at.
The rest of Twitter melted down. But, no, I mean, Locke makes some stupid decisions. But overall, I mean, I think you guys got some ball players.
There's talent.
Melvin Gordon looked like he was playing somebody in red and white.
Yeah, I was frustrated that the Broncos got away from their run game in the fourth quarter, and I was really frustrated they didn't go for it on that 4th and 3 at midfield. Mm-hmm. Oh, my.
Well, the thing with Locke is he just needs to do the simple, right? Because, I mean, his bootlegs, his throws, he's pretty accurate. but he forced a couple, and the Honey Badger was right there to go Matumbo on him.
Yeah, before that last drive, I even sat there and I said, oh, well, Drew Lock's going to throw an interception here. 1 minute, no timeouts.
You called it? You had your Vegas friend ready to take that phone call on an in-game side bet?
Well, I mean, Drew Lock forces it into double coverage on 1st and 10 in the first quarter. Why would he not do it with a minute left in the fourth?
Why wouldn't he do it when it matters?
Exactly.
Right. Reminder about moving. In West Blue Realty, we tell you about your friends at West Blue Realty quite a bit, and they do such an amazing job when it comes to specializing in residential home sales in Lincoln and the surrounding communities. They can make a move painless for you, and if you think about using West Blue Realty for a limited time offer, you mentioned Hale Varsity, and West Blue Realty can provide up to $1,000 on the closing of your next home purchase. Couple of folks over at West Blue that'll really take care of you. Tom Luby at 402-540-3768 or Kelly Hofschneider. Give Kelly a shout as well at 402-202-2312. It pays to work with West Blue, westbluerealty.com. Couple of great Nebraska guys. And go see them. Make an appointment today, 1120 K Street, Suite 200. So final question I have for you. Did we give away a Jet Splash on Friday?
We did not.
So can we do that now?
Let's do it.
All right, let's housekeeping. I screwed that up. I meant to get to the Jet Splash giveaway Friday. $25 gift certificate. It's going to be a gorgeous week. Not my fault for what happens Friday overnight, Saturday with weather. It'll be Big Ten weather for you on Saturday. But we'll take caller 5 right now for that final Jet Splash gift card. $25 Jet Splash gift card. Give Elijah a shout right now. Caller 5, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Caller 5, a $25 gift card to Jet Splash. We fumbled at the goal line on Friday from doing that. Big thanks to our friends at Jet Splash. Charlie McBride, Mr. Blackshirt, up next on Hale Varsity.
Welcome to Hale Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hale Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
Great to have you back. It's Hour 2. It's Hale Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. It is that time, Mondays with Charlie. We say hi to Mr. Blackshirt himself, the legend Charlie McBride. Coach, are you getting a little bit of winter weather up there, or is it pretty pleasant? We've got 55 and sunshine here.
Well, that's what we're headed for. They say we're going to hit the 50s pretty soon, so that'll be something different for this time of year, but weather's been okay. As long as the wind doesn't blow, I don't care how cold it gets.
No kidding, right?
It's just that wind that's bad, yeah.
I'm on the same page with you there with the wind. And it was a little dreary and cloudy, but you know what? The Nebraska offense and defense and special teams showed up on Saturday. Let's start off with Purdue. Nebraska wins 37-27. What'd you think?
Well, you know, that for me, that takes the pressure off around here because they'll get a lot of, you know, Indiana people. Most of them are Indiana University people, you know. But, of course, they're having a great year, and they're all smiling and grinning, and sometimes it makes you feel good because they don't have them very often. And
you let them know that?
Last time I remember, John Pont was the head coach, and they did go to the Rose Bowl that year. And but you know, it's kind of different, you know, in a lot of respects because they haven't been around, you know, doing much in the last 30 years or so.
That's true. Indiana's, and the way the players Love Coach Tom Allen was really cool. That post game, as he's trying to do his interview, you've got a bunch of players walking up and hugging him, and it was similar with Scott Frost. You had a few guys come up to him after the win against Purdue, where you could just see the joy. It wasn't even relief; it was just happiness that they got a win and they played a better football game. Coach.
Yeah, well, that's really good to see. I think that. Everybody, for some reason the game seems like, I don't know how to explain it, but I felt even more comfortable before the game even started for some reason. Mm-hmm. I said, I think, maybe, the week before and some of the things that have happened to them, maybe they're getting a little tired of that and, hearing the same old. And a lot of times, you use the fans for motivation. I mean, the negative fans, and because it's good to feel good that maybe you can, keep them quiet for a while. Because no matter what you do, we could win games. We still have them. They'll be there, so you don't have to worry about it. And that's why I always used to tell the players, if it gets a little rough, don't worry about it. Just play for the ones that love you, because they'll never let you down, no matter what you do. And so it's a lot more fun though when you do win, and it is a team thing. It's both sides of the ball took part, and then we scored on defense, and with the block punt and things like that, and that somebody made a point after the game that maybe that block punt was, the indication to the whole team that, hey, we can do it, and, without problem. Then I think having fun is the biggest thing, and going out and trying putting pressure on yourself, and, you're going to make mistakes, but, you can make up for them on the next play. And if you take that idea, that in your mind, then it helps a lot, because guys that can forget about what happened the play before and that usually are the guys that are successful.
I want to talk about Taylor Britt. He's been playing really well at corner and had a rough moment against Iowa last week. He came back with a vengeance this week, and he's really, Coach McBride, done a great job on some of the best receivers that he's had to face. When I look at the Dotson kid out of Penn State, and then Bell is really talented from Purdue. And I know there was that big touchdown that Nebraska gave up, and that was more of Nebraska taking one another out than Bell burning somebody. But give me your thoughts on just where you've seen Taylor Britt kind of rise up and do his thing. He's settling in really well at corner.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, he's a junior yet, isn't he?
He is.
He's got another year.
Yes.
Yeah, well, he's a pro player. If he keeps going and improving like he is, that he's a good hitter. That's important. That's one of the things you don't see a whole lot in the NFL. Are guys that'll, come up and tackle and come up and make a collision and things like that. I know when we played in a bowl game early in the game against, I think it was, I don't remember, LSU or somebody like that. It was, you get a kid like Ralph Brown came up and made a big play and caused a fumble and changed the whole game, the complexion of the whole game. I think in Tennessee, it was Tennessee. And, and things like that, they make a big difference. When guys see something like that, a guy out there playing like that, and I think you got some players out there that are playing every play, and it's kind of fun to see that, because I think some of the young ones don't understand, that maybe I haven't played as hard as I can play, even in high school and that, and right now, if I confronted them, I'd have them raise their hand to how many guys played as hard as they can, play. And you aren't going to, when you really think about it, I said, really tell, how many guys did. And not many guys will raise their hand. And it's really kind of interesting. It's not, it's just a point that and that's what happens, and it's got to be every play. It can't just be one or the other. And the other thing is you can. I've never seen a game won with your mouth. Have you? I mean,
there was a lot of chirping on Saturday, wasn't there?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, the best thing to do is maybe not do that, because usually what happens is it's never failed. It always turns around the guy that's motoring the most, with his mouth is the guy that usually screws up the next play or something, or does something that, and then you think, why in the world is this guy talking when he's playing like that? So the best way to do it is just, play football and forget all that stuff.
Charlie McBride with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Charlie, there are some things from the game Saturday that I think need to be improved, but for the most part, I think it's a positive takeaway from that game. One of the things that we haven't gotten into was sort of a cold weather game for the Huskers, about 32 degrees at kickoff out in West Lafayette. And the Huskers are going to have another cold weather game this weekend against Minnesota, and everyone remembers how that cold weather game last year went against Minnesota. But just from your experience as a coach, what do you have to tell the guys before a cold weather game? Does it affect how they play? I mean, just how different is a cold weather game from a warm weather game?
No, you know what? We never said a thing about it, because those kids took pride in playing in cold weather, because that's basically what our Nebraska was made of. I mean, it's no different up there than Minnesota for years played inside. Now they're playing outside, and it's becoming a little different. Same with Wisconsin. These are cold weather guys, and a lot of times even the guys from Florida and that, never complained. Everybody complains. I mean, it's, you'd rather play out in the sunshine anytime. I mean, so inside you're going, oh man, it's cold out here. But, when the ball snapped, it's not cold anymore. And, it just, it goes away, and you kind of forget about it till you hit the sideline and, get something on or wrapped around you and things like that. And so, I think a lot of guys take pride in playing well in the cold.
Coach, what do you think of the Nebraska defense? They've seemed to get better, and I think they've had a pretty good year. I know the Illinois game wasn't great, but it seems like this defense really coming around, and they've been very physical.
Well, I think looks like they're turning loose a little bit. They're starting to get after people, and they're starting to get a better pass rush, and they're starting move around. I don't know what their schemes are. I mean, I can see ways that, you can get to them even more, but, stuff like that. But I do see, the front three kids, to me, really played well. Mm-hmm. The outside guys played good, but the inside guys are the guys nobody really watches. And I do. I pay a lot of attention to especially the inside of the game rather than the outside a lot of times. And, and so those front 3-4 guys that are playing in there, have really come on. And I think that a game like that gives them confidence. And I think sometimes, you can just, turn it loose and, as long as you don't second guess yourself, and stop and go and, say, just, if you make a mistake, make it 100 miles an hour, do wreck something. Right. Anything that's in front of you, you'll never fail, at least, playing as hard as you can. And that's what I think people are looking for. I think that, at this time of the game, what people want to see most is guys that are flying around and really playing hard in every play. And, losing a game is one thing. If you play as hard as you can, and lose, it's still important in how you play the game, because everything's going to come out right in the long run if you keep, if you're persistent with it.
What do you think of Minnesota? The game is going to be far from Minnesota's best when it comes to personnel because of the COVID, but Minnesota really drilled Nebraska last year, Coach.
Well, I think that's motivation. That's something that, the players have to look at. I would even think that the guys that didn't play last year that weren't even on the campus, some of them, are going to take it to the house with that. They're going to get upset too when they see older people that say, "Hey, listen, these guys last year embarrassed us," or whatever the case is, and that happens a lot in football. I mean, because a lot of times, even in the guys that played, in their minds, they think, well, last year we stoned these guys and it'll be the same. Well, that's good. When they think that way, that usually rubs off in their practices and everything else. And, you got some guys that aren't smart enough to figure it out that they got to play harder this year than they did last year. Mm-hmm. And that means them, Minnesota, because they're going to come down here and, it's going to be, a little different. Even though that we don't have our fans in the stand, it's still going to be different for them.
Coach, I want to get you out of here on this about 2 minutes. But last week was the 28th anniversary of the Coca-Cola Bowl, where you guys got to go overseas to play Kansas State. Do you have fond memories of the trip to Japan?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's an experience. Besides, it's a history thing. I mean, it's something that you will never do. I mean, my wife and I had never
would have gone that way.
Yeah. Anything, like that. And, we went over there. It's a different culture. It's a different, how they cheer in the stands and how they do things. But, and we traveled, actually, the two teams traveled together. And, we both went on the same plane and everything else. And, of course, coming back, it was a little rough at times because, the team that lost wasn't real happy. But, going over there, it was some of the players got to know each other and things like that. It was probably a good thing. When you got over there, it's the time difference, Myself, I never went to sleep, and when you do go over there, it's kind of like you get there and eat dinner and go to bed, and you wake up in the morning and everything's cool. It's all like nothing happened. But some guys, if you go to sleep and you come over and you have trouble sleeping and things, it can be a little bit of a rough time at first. They had a field taped on a baseball field.
Oh wow.
With tape you tape your ankles with. They made a field out of that on a baseball field for us. And, of course, we kicked that, just running over it and kind of destroyed that quick. But it was a lot of fun. It was great. And, we had some free time to go, down in their area where they shop, and guys were able to, go out and see things. One of the negative things that happened is we had a band from another school, the completely other school, came up there, and they decided they were going to take some stuff home with them.
Oh.
And forgot to pay for it, and they stopped their airplane, and I think they had, I don't know whether it was $20,000 worth of electrical equipment, that they had left with, including the bandmaster.
Oh no!
And they actually cut their band out. Period. Dropped band in that school and
locked up abroad.
Yeah, they just locked. Well, it was kind of a sad thing for all of us because, it made the people in the United States look like, didn't look so hot.
Sure.
And you feel kind of bad about it, but overall, it was really a great experience.
Charlie McBride with us. Coach, we'll talk next Monday. Thanks for the time today.
Sure. Okay. I'll talk to you next week after we win again, right?
That sounds good, Coach.
Okay. Bye now.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Good stuff from Charlie McBride. It's Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. We welcome in Grill Master, podcaster, recruiting insider Greg Smith at Greg Smith HV. Now, did you get out and fire up the grill again tonight? I'm going to do that later, I think. I'm thinking some bone-in pork chops. I may change my mind and just fire up a Lazari stew. I don't know, man. It's going to be me and football tonight.
Man, all of that sounds good as my stomach grumbles. We are not on the grill tonight. We're doing cod in the air fryer. I'm trying something different tonight.
Cod in the air fryer. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have the Ninja air fryer?
No. I think Emerald, I think, is who made our air fryer. So we'll see. That's the wife, man. We've gone out of my realm now. Expertise.
See, the air fryer is pretty money. It's not bad at all, and it's a new air fryer we got. We had kind of a different one that we gave to the brother and sister-in-law, so we can go visit it. But yeah, I'm just hoping I've got enough propane. I should probably have done that earlier, but
give it a little shake.
I might have to. But you know what, Greg? We are going to break out some Kleenex here, some tears for Nebraska fans with Patrick Payton, stud out of Florida, out of Miami Northwest. You know how good that high school is. He is doing the tomahawk chop today. Your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty quick. Like, usually when guys decommit and kind of go through the thing about, the school will remain in my top schools and all of that, they don't usually make a decision right away. So it was a little bit surprising to see that. New Florida State was kind of in the mix. Miami was also in the mix as well, but I think Miami's class size is getting tight, or their numbers are. They've got a couple other good pass rushers in the class. So he's electing to stay in Florida and go to Florida State. And as I think I've said before, like, it's better to find out now if you're in Nebraska that he wanted to, had eyes to go somewhere else. But it's a tough blow either way, just because he's a really good pass rusher. He's a talented kid, fits a position of need that all programs are looking for, but specifically Nebraska with what they want to do in that 3-4. He's a really good player. But like I said, better to find out now than, a couple of months into his time on campus.
Greg, this is a monster position of need. Nebraska needs somebody to get after the quarterback at that outside linebacker spot. You've still got plenty of career left for Caleb Tanner, plenty of career left for Garrett Nelson. You have Nico Cooper that's on the roster, Phildarius Payne, and then also some guys that are in the development stages. So Nebraska's recruited outside linebacker. But Patrick Payton seemed like a guy that was going to be big for them. Schweitzer out of Los Gatos. We love talking to that kid. He's playing for Coach Kelly now at Notre Dame, or will be. So where do you see this position at? Is it panic time, or is it just more about patience and development here? Is Nebraska okay to eventually have a difference maker getting after the quarterback?
That's the interesting thing about it is I don't think that it's panic time because, like, you named off a bunch of guys before you get to guys like Jamari Butler and Blaze Gunnerson, guys like that, Jamin Graham, who are in the program and kind of in the crock pot, to stay with our cooking theme, kind of going to get some seasoning and development, right? So if you can get a guy or two from that group to hit, then you're okay long term, because those guys are still really young, right? I also think that it's interesting that what we've seen here recently from Nebraska's pass rush and being able to affect quarterbacks when we see on Saturdays is they're finding other ways to get that done, whether it's how they line up, their alignment. It's not putting guys with their hand in the dirt like Garrett Nelson instead of just having them stand up on the outside. So they're doing a lot of interesting things to generate that pass rush. But, yes, you do want to see that kind of pure pass rush specialist come into the program. But I don't think that it's necessarily panic time, just because all of the young guys that we don't know kind of what is their future is going to hold here at Nebraska if they can't turn into some of those guys.
Greg, last thought here on Patrick Payton. And one thing I noticed is that he decommitted and ends up going to Florida State just after the Huskers lost their last two players from the state of Florida in the most recent recruiting class. Do you think that could be a part of it? And do you think that with the Huskers losing all those players, they could struggle moving forward recruiting in the state of Florida after kind of showing that maybe that Florida guys aren't meant for Nebraska, or at least Nebraska right now?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think it would be hard to believe that losing those Florida kids didn't have some type of impact, right? Like, especially with a couple of kids that went to the same high school that he's at. I don't think he played with Delancey and Fleming, but they did go to that high school. He transferred in, but that's also something else that you kind of see a lot of with some of those Florida guys is that they transfer and bop around to different high schools, which is also can be a different red flag. Not always the case, but can be. But I do think that's something that the Husker staff will need to keep an eye on because all it takes is, whether it's true or not, one or two kids to really say some bad things about the program and how it doesn't fit them, and it can really snowball on you. So Nebraska will definitely have to be aware of that.
Greg Smith with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine. Follow him on Twitter at GregSmithHV. Recruiting thoughts here is Patrick Payton decommitting, headed to Florida State. A Florida talent at outside linebacker. Let's talk about Raquan Buckley out of Michigan. Nebraska gets their defensive guy. He commits on Saturday. That's good news. Nebraska fending off some nice programs. Greg, in your communication with Buckley and his coaching staff, a thought from you on just how big a land this is for Nebraska, and also, kind of zoom out for a moment here. Nebraska wants to take 25. Do you feel like Nebraska's got a good shot as we, near the 16th year? Where does the class stand, in your opinion, here, as far as what Nebraska's keeping open and maybe who for, and who are some guys you think are close to maybe pulling the trigger on the Big Red that are still undecided?
Yeah, I think with Raquan, there's a couple of things that get you really excited. One, he's an athletic kid that has versatility. He's been recruited to play either offensive line or defensive line by a lot of schools. Like I know Florida State, who was in his Final Five, really liked him at offensive line. I think Nebraska obviously liked him at defensive line. I think Michigan State was kind of either or. So that tells you a little bit about his athleticism, the kid that has a basketball background. He's 6'6", 280, and he actually just turned 17 years old. So he's young for his grade as well, which is always a good sign for the future of his development. He also is early enrolling, so that's another good thing for Duval and Ellis to get their hands on him. And Raquan actually told me that the reason he wanted to do that was so that he could speed up his development. But I thought it was interesting that he did not say so I could get on the field. He said so that I could learn from the guys that are already there in that defensive line room and Coach T. So I thought that all of that was really good. Now, as far as where Nebraska wants to go, I think that they can take 25. I would be surprised if they take a full 25 with this recruiting class because I think they'll want to save a couple of spots for the transfer portal. I think there's like 170-some people in the transfer portal right now. So there's going to be a lot of, and with more to come, right? So there's going to be a lot of kids looking for homes. So Nebraska will want to keep that kind of fluid to have that room. But I think that the guys that they really want, Tia Savea, who we've talked about a bunch, the defensive lineman out of Las Vegas, I think they still want to take at least one defensive lineman. Wyndon Hululi is definitely has a spot if he wants it, linebacker out of Hawaii. And then I think that there's a flex spot there for either kind of a best available athlete like Titus, the wide receiver out of Hawaii. If they could pull off a flip like an Avante Dickerson, would definitely be a welcome addition. I think that they're kind of staying flexible with those last couple of spots outside of Savea and Hululi.
Greg, it's still a little early to talk about the transfer portal. Season's not even over yet, but we did talk on Friday about Mackenzie Milton and maybe getting some Nebraska interest. Are there any other guys that are in the transfer portal you think are going to get some interest from Nebraska, or do you think there's any positions that the Huskers may be targeting to get some instant production out of the transfer portal?
Yeah, it's really about positions because the names change so much. It's really interesting because it's going to change because, so does Nebraska now all of a sudden have a real need in the defensive backfield at, say, safety, right? Because what happens if, Markell Dismuke and Deontay Williams move on after this season, but Miles Farmer was hurt in pregame. He's going to be out for a while based on what you hear about how badly that injury looked, off the front end. So there's your top three safety safeties from last year or from this current year, right? So you may need some help back there. So that need changes. You always, like we were talking earlier, will take a pass rusher if one of those becomes available. How do you feel about wide receiver moving into next year, even though you feel a little bit better about it now? Like, I think the way it's set up, you can look at a number of directions. So it's going to stay fluid for Nebraska.
Greg Smith's with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine recruiting insider at Greg Smith HV on Twitter. Greg, a couple of minutes here, and where do you think Nebraska may look? Is it going to be transfer portal? Is it going to be JUCO? Is it going to be high school when it comes to maybe that outside pass rusher? We started with it. I want to end with it. Is there a preference, or is it more about just, okay, we have three options, there's three doors to look at?
You know, what's interesting when you said that is I had not even thought about junior college because it's been so weird with JUCO not playing right now, right? And with their season being
they'll be in the spring, right?
Yeah, right. And so, but they will still have guys that come out in January, I assume. Like, you could still end up having that situation of guys that have been taking care of their classwork, so you never know about, like, some type of hidden gem coming out of that situation. But the good thing is like he alluded to, Nebraska will have options, and they kind of give themselves some options there. So you can either go the JUCO route. If you have a guy that comes on the board here from the high school ranks that you really feel good about, you can take him, or you can maybe even hold a spot or two for the transfer portal. I think it would make the most sense to me to go transfer portal just so you can get some older depth coming into the program, because like we said, there's a bunch of young guys there. You would like to have somebody a little bit more physically developed come into the program if it's me.
I would speed dial, well, not that they can, but I look at the University of Buffalo and what Coach Lance is doing up there. If he gets a phone call from a bigger job, and those guys either follow him, transfer, or look elsewhere, there's some MAC talent that could translate to the Big Ten that you may want to keep your eye on. Just a thought there with the portal. So.
Absolutely.
Greg, enjoy your Monday. Enjoy your football Monday. Awesome stuff on recruiting. Good stuff with Buckley. And thanks for giving us a few minutes, man. We'll be in touch.
Hey, thanks as always, man. You guys have a great week.
You too. Be sure to get Greg's podcast with Jay Foreman on the Hurrdat Media Network, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. And that's good stuff. Some NFL thoughts, some more on Nebraska, Minnesota. It's Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, it's Hail Varsity. Almost a final time. It's Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. A couple more thoughts here from some of the seniors before we get into some NFL, and Elijah beating his chest with his Denver cover and staking a beer bet over me. That was just too cocky.
What am I, 6-2 on the year now?
I flip it around.
Yeah.
You're 2 in a row. You're 2 in a row.
You knew what I meant.
No, I know. But you go with the wins and the loss column first. Mm-hmm. But you've won 2 in a row.
I'll take it.
I will give you that.
4 away from evening things up.
That's right. So I'm still 4 T-bones ahead. That's how I look at it.
Better than 6 T-bones ahead.
That is about right. A couple of thoughts here with Mills, right? And we'll look at cut 16 here. The big thought this week is, okay, Nebraska, can you handle success? You won. You won by 10. Could have been more. Wasn't perfect on Saturday, but you're not going to run from it as a Nebraska fan. Hell, it's a road win. So now here comes Minnesota, and the feel is this. Nebraska is striving and finishing strong towards the end of the year. They're getting towards the finish line here and not weary at all. Minnesota, brother, they aren't limping, they're crawling. All right. After the COVID battle they've endured. And on top of that, you've got a number of dudes that, okay, great, you're done with COVID, but you still got the 21-day punch in the face by the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think it's something like 20 guys in the Minnesota team are going to be
40 staff, but 20-some players.
Yeah.
On top of the opt-outs. So we'll get to some of your calls, but let's hear real quick from Mills on not worrying about kind of an Illinois repeat?
No, I don't feel like we have to worry about that this week. I feel like all the guys know and know. I mean, they know what we got going ahead and what they got to deal with and what we got to put on the field, what we got to do every day at practice. And that's come out every day and practice like we playing in the game. You know what I mean? And I can honestly say like that. Probably the Illinois week, everybody didn't prepare the right way that week. Everybody was still riding off their win. So I mean, and you saw that practice and today. I mean, with me being back, I'd never let that'd never happen again. As far as being a senior, you know what I mean, and I know the rest of the seniors like D-Cap and Fournier and Hymas and all us, like we be on players now. You know what I mean? Like these past few weeks, it's been different. You know what I mean? It's been different at practice. Like everybody's been catching every ball, grinding every play. People been in the right positions, been in the right place they're supposed to be at the right time, and it just showed in the game Saturday.
Good stuff from Mills, and there's more accountability. That's the best way I'll put it. And we'll hear more from Mills, but I want to get to one of our favorite listeners, man. We say hi to Artez. Artez, what do you know? How are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Man, we're smiling that there's a win to talk about.
Man, I love Charlie McBride. That's my favorite coach, man.
Well, Chuck's the best. Coach McBride's so much fun. He's been doing Mondays with Charlie for, I think, 10 years, and we're lucky to have him. But he's so on it with everything. Yeah. You know what?
I actually I shared that story he said on the radio about Roger when Coach Milton was recruiting Roger, and they were all in the recruiting room, and they actually should we look at the film, and Milton says, no, we don't need to watch any film of Roger. We're good. And it was funny because Coach McBride said, well, usually we look at the film, but I guess he was already set that Roger was going to be a Cornhusker. So that's a pretty cool story.
That is, because there's a lot of guys from the staff when John Melton, and Melton was a linebackers coach, and Melton was there with Devaney, and Melton was there up through the late 80s, I think 88 or 89. I think right before Tony Samuel or Kevin Steele, or maybe both arrived before John retired. But the thing that Charlie'd laugh about is there'd be like one or two scholarship spots left, and Tom would want to offer an offensive guy, and Melton would just be he'd beat T.O. to the punch and right. Say, well, we've already offered this Trev Alberts guy a scholarship, coach. We better honor our word.
All he was All-American for you, coach. I mean.
No, I know Melton's batting average was like 1,000%, you know?
I love it. That's awesome.
But
a quick question. A real quick question. If the Huskers finish 4-4, will they be going bowling or not?
I think so. I think if they get to 4-4, when you look at bowl projections, Artez, you had Purdue as one of the last slots, okay? And I don't know, it's maybe the Mortgage Bowl or whatever the hell it's called. I don't know for sure.
Right.
But
right.
The destination I saw is if Nebraska can get a win over Purdue, you get one over Minnesota, you win out and you get to 4-4. You know, you and I know darn well that the bowls are all shaved this year because of COVID.
Right.
So I think Nebraska could end up in Frisco, Texas. It'd be a Big 10, Big 12 matchup against Kansas State or whoever falls in that K-State slot. They got rolled by Texas. So I think that's possible.
Now, as far as that Big Ten championship week we're going to have, who do we look like we're going to play? Is it going to be Michigan or Rutgers? Who does it look like?
I think those are the two, right? Because Michigan has practiced today, so that as we talk Monday here, it looks like that Michigan, Ohio State still on, which would keep Rutgers and Maryland still on. So Nebraska right now, Elijah, 3 or 4 way tie for either last or sixth.
Currently, Nebraska sits second to last in the Big Ten West, but a win over Minnesota would put them over Minnesota.
Sure. So you'd move up. So you'd take on the 5th place team?
Most likely, yeah.
Who's 5th right now? Michigan?
Michigan State.
So Sparty.
Michigan's 4, Michigan State is 5.
Okay.
So those are both good options.
The Buckeyes aren't going to put 100 on Michigan like they said early in the summer.
I think they'll put 100 on him in the first half if they can.
That would be nice.
It's a parting gift to Jim.
That's all I got, guys. I'm actually driving a semi right now, but I got my earpiece in. So, but I always listen to you guys. But you guys are great show, man.
Hey, Artez, you're awesome, and thanks for checking. Can you pull the horn for me?
Yeah, just a second.
All right. That's money.
There you go, brother.
Hey, that is awesome. Artez, I appreciate you.
Good night, man. I appreciate it. Yep.
There he is.
Bye.
Take care. Artez Craig joining us. It's Roger's brother and listens to us, streaming us, ESPNLincoln.com. That's awesome. And Artez is a good dude. He's a big Husker fan, and bless him for listening as long as he has. But he's driving that semi, man, truck driver. I needed him to eat. I mean, as kids, we all did that.
My question,
or not.
I was just going to get back into this bowl game thing.
Please,
the conference
important
game
stuff.
But I wonder if Nebraska were to win this. Nebraska goes to 3-4. A Nebraska-Wisconsin matchup in that last week could be a lot of fun.
I'd love
to get
it.
that game rescheduled.
I would love it.
And they said there's flexibility built into that week for games like that.
Here's my question for you on that. Wisconsin and Minnesota is a longer rival for the Axe. If you're going to reschedule, would Minnesota-Wisconsin get dibs over get dibs over Nebraska-Wisconsin?
That's a good question.
I think
probably.
I think they would, because you're already hearing chirping about that. We got to get out. We'll wind down. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Got to give credit. Elijah Herbal always gets Mr. Garrison from South Park fame to do weather for us before we come back. There's been so many comments on that guy. The guy doing the weather.
I don't want to say too much.
No, it sounds like Mr. Garrison from South Park, right? Can you
go pull it back up
a little bit? I mean, see what we're talking about. Damon said, he wasn't sure if it was Mr. Garrison or Mr. Hat. But I haven't watched South Park live for 1,000 years. That's how old I am. That thing started when I was a freshman in college.
You want the weather report?
Yes or no? Is it Mr. Garrison? Right? Children? I think it is.
I'm weatherology meteorologist Derek Dahlman with your Capital City forecast. Clear skies are expected across the region for tonight with a low dropping to around 28. On Tuesday, plenty of sunshine, 60. That's the forecast on Lincoln's ESPN. Right now, 56.
It's Mr. Garrison. Am I wrong? Can you pull up Mr. Garrison?
Report for Hillary Clinton today. Yes, I know she's a turd sandwich, but if you look past that, she really has a lot to offer.
I think it's very close. I think it's what we got to do Wednesday. This is our mission. All right, we're going to do a side-by-side voice sample.
Just like we could do it like you ever seen those pitching videos in the MLB where they overlay like a fastball with a curveball?
Right.
Yeah. We can try to get him to say the same things.
I think
it's possible. We can send an email to whoever.
I just want to hear one clip, another clip more closely together.
Is that on the docket for Wednesday?
That's homework for you.
I can do that.
All right. Real quick reminder about buckling up. Nearly 70% of people in fatal crashes in Nebraska not wearing their seatbelt. If used properly, seatbelts can reduce risk of injury by up to 60%. Your best defense in any crash, buckling up, brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Busy one tomorrow. Pretty excited. Rick Pizzo, Coach Rick Kaczynski back with us. I like our sit-downs with Kaz. Win or lose Tuesdays. And then Mitch Sherman. Mitch is awesome from The Athletic. He'll be with us Tuesday. Wednesday, Glenn Mason, former Gopher head coach and part of BTN, going to be with us. And just got this confirmation Thursday. 'Tis the season to talk to the Pirate. Leach going to be with us on Thursday. So Coach Mike Leach.
And I do believe you also have the pleasure of having Will Wilson produce for you on Tuesday and Thursday.
Really?
I believe.
Will's okay.
I believe with Damon out of town.
He's back from Arizona. Because I know Will was down in Zona. He had somebody sign, was that his sister's cast or somebody's cast? I saw on social media they signed 1015 FM.
I believe friend from high school.
Okay. So long and short of it, Will Wilson and his super gorgeous mullet going to be here on Tuesday, Thursday. Damon's in Chicago just kicking it.
Yeah.
In a lockdown. Is Chicago locked down? I don't know.
I think so, but he's there with his girlfriend, so.
So that's a good thing.
I'm sure you can find something to do in a lockdown.
If you're locked down with your girlfriend, that's even better. I want to get locked down with my wife.
Do you?
Yeah. All sharp objects got to be hidden.
Yeah, okay, there's the stipulation.
All right. It's Damon Barr that's in Chicago. Will Wilson perhaps this week. That's Elijah Herbal. It's good to spend time with him. Big thanks to Coach McBride and Greg Smith and Jay Moore. Talk to you tomorrow at 4.